Just another day, all we do is scream into the night. Nothing ever tries to change, even if I want to realize. 'Cause I've been sitting here, same old ways, taking off without the same escape. Darling, when you go away, it won't be as simple for you.
Yo, guys, we are back. I'm joined once again by who's appearing to be the GOAT journalist right now in Tom the Journalist. We've got obviously breaking news regarding Sheikh Jassim making his final bid. But before I even hand over to Tom, what I just want to say, first of all, big up the chat. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Suit if you're new. But what I want to say is this, guys, for those of you who are watching the show yesterday, if you're watching the show yesterday, you might recall that Tom did say, if you're listening, if you're paying attention, that Sheikh Jassim, given the situation, was likely to make a bid given the situation. Despite the fact that there are many reaction merchants online, Twitter, in the nose, YouTube channels, etc., Tom did say that Sheikh Jassim would inevitably have to make a bid and likely would make a bid given the circumstances. And sure enough, only less than 24 hours later, he did. So I just want to big up this guy. He's been really, really good when it comes to info and being able to deliver the information in a way that is logical and that makes sense and that isn't reactionary. So guys in the chat, please give him a big up as well. And make sure you follow him at TomJournalist1. Please give him a follow. But yeah, I just want to give that intro to you, Tom. Tom, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good as always, G. And yeah, thank you obviously for what you've just said and everything. And yeah, I guess in hindsight, likewise with yourself, G. You know, listen, anybody who's watching either live, watching post stream or whatever for updates or for what G puts out content wise as well, for what he announced yesterday about the merch as well. Listen, it's good business. Give G your support for what he gives back to you with the content. And obviously his timescale sometimes doesn't suit to do certain streams and do things with what goes on in his life and with his work and everything. But listen, big him up as well, guys. So, give him a like, share, and subscribe to his channel as always, guys. So
Appreciate it. So before we go, I'm just going to read some comments before we actually get into the big news, obviously, with the Sheikh Jassim final bid. So Cameron says, bro, please get Tom on for the stream. His input here is fire. Yes, well, he is here. He is here. So there you go. Why so late stream? Because work and but it's fine. We're live. We're here. Get involved. More news is coming for Glaze over Mega. Please. Says Lucky Singh. 5.8 billion to 6 billion. Glazers out. Fair enough. Scott says it's 5.6 billion, which is $6.9 billion. Okay. Eddie says, when will this sale be over? Lol, big up. Yeah, it's been dragging on for a while. Fans will stay outside for 20 minutes. Well, to get them to end. Baraka says, yeah, good day, Man United fans. Big news. Cameron says reported $8. I mean, Ross says $8. I was even $8 billion because it definitely will be going with $8. Lucky things. Oh, Bournemouth next game. We stay out for 20 minutes to get there. Okay, fair enough. I see what you're saying. And Peter Moss says Glazers must go. Fair enough. Okay, so let's basically just get it. Let's just get straight in. Let's dive into it. So, Tom, what is the latest update? And just think everything around the idea that Sheikh Jassim has submitted this sort of final bid for Manchester United. Can you kind of unpack that for us?
Yeah, but in terms of what we spoke about yesterday, in terms of if Sheikh Jassim needed to make another bid, then he's prepared to do so. And lo and behold, he has made another bid, and and you can say it for in hindsight that he's had to, because of the position that the Glazer family had put him in, where privately they'd already made their minds up that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was the one that they wanted to go with. But privately and public is different. And like I said yesterday, you can make your mind up privately, but if somebody puts more money down for you and it's money that you can't refuse, look, I'm not going to come on here and BS people. Like, I don't know the numbers, and anybody who says that they know the numbers is rubbish, because at the end of the day, the currency for the takeover isn't going through in pounds, it's going through in dollars for starters. So people who say £5 billion or £5.6 billion or anything like that, it's sort of that. It's going through in dollars transaction for the Glazer family want, because the process is being run via an American investment bank, so they have to use dollars. It's just corporate and it's legal law to do so. With Sheikh Jassim and his offer, he, like I say, on Friday, when the Sir Jim Ratcliffe news had come out around that the Glazer family were warming to his offer, they liked the proposal to stay with Joel and Avram, to stay with 20%, let the siblings be bought out, and Sir Jim buying at 50%. And then that they'd informed privately, Rain had informed Sheikh Jassim in this case, that privately that they'd already decided upon that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was the preferred bidder in the Glazer family's minds, and Joel and Avram's mind had really, been made up and spoken of privately. And they said, look, take the weekend over it, and if you want to resubmit a bid, the process lines are open. There's not been a hard deadline, so if you want to make a new offer and you want to contemplate, and over the weekend, the process, he had gone on a complete blackout. There was no press releases, there was no leaks regarding the Qatari bid, and the reason why was that because they were discussing a number, they were discussing what they wanted to bid again, and from the clarity of what's come then on Monday when we did the stream for yesterday, the Rain Group had advised pursue a full sale where possible, and then 24 hours later we're at today, and now the Qataris have gone in where they know that Rain have made the recommendation for a full buyout where possible, and if you like, they've put the Glazer family now in a position where they've increased the bid once again. They've gone now, this is it. Like, so Jim's played his hand and he's got nothing else to give. Well, this is us and we've got nothing else to give.
Yeah.
We're making this bid upon that we do have a pot of money on the side as a start-up for the club where we can invest in the infrastructure, or we can invest in the team, men's, women's and youth setups, or Carrington, whatever. There's £800 million that is set aside that is not being touched by you. The debt's getting cleared out one way or another, whether it be in the price or not. So effectively, they've put their hands on the table. You're at the poker table. You've seen, a bit of bluffing, a bit of, we'll blow everybody out of the water. And ultimately now, this is the bid, if you like, that people can reiterate as being maybe the bid that blows people out of the water, because nobody really expected that Sheikh Jassim, would have to bid again, but also even if he would, because he'd already done all that he said that he had done anyway, when he said that the third bid was his final bid. But it's not, because he's made this new bid out of the blue, and like you say, now that is the final, if you like, announcement. That I would be very shocked from this point now if Sir Jim Ratcliffe came in with another proposal, or you had Sheikh Jassim had to make another proposal or another bid. I think this is set in stone now, where we knew what Sir Jim Ratcliffe was offering, because it had become public knowledge. 50% now, buy in and buy out of the four siblings and keep Joel and Avi with 20%. And then we knew what Sir Jim was proposing, and that was, if you like, all that he had on the table. And then now you've got to the point where we know what Sheikh Jassim has fully offered now, which is the package to buy in for 69%, and then he wants a pledge to buy out the rest of the shares over the coming months if he was to buy Manchester United. And he's already got aside a pot of cash of £800 million to put straight into Manchester United, one way or another. And from that point on, you can state it for what it is. He's gone back in, he's reevaluated with his team and his delegation. They've gone back in, and this is it. Now you take it or leave it. And from this point on, from what the Qatari side is saying is, we've done all we can. we're not going to do any more. We're not going to pull any more strings, any more levers, put any more cash on the table. It's take it or leave it. And if you want to put a British term on it, I guess, you know, a popular game show back in the day, deal or no deal, is essentially what the Qataris are saying right now to the Glazer family. You take it now or we walk. It's simple. There is no more solutions.
Okay. Thank you for that, Tom. I'm just want to ask a few questions on one, but just before I go to that, Cameron actually says in the chat, Tom, apparently the Rats bid is going to be worth more in 3 to 4 years. Is this false or not? So I'm bringing this up because, you know, obviously from what I understand from the deal, Jim Ratcliffe is obviously using his money, whatever that value is, to bid for 50%. Essentially. So is the reason why the Glazers are liking Ratcliffe's bid because potentially they're going to get more value in a couple of years' time? Is that it?
Well, in terms of if they get more value or not, depends on A, if they give it to Sir Jim Ratcliffe in the first place, and B, if he makes Manchester United a success upon getting it. Because that factors in two things. You would have the 4 siblings distributed. So you'd have Darcy, Kevin, Brian and Edward, the other 4 Glazer family members would all be bought out. So they never have an existing share in Manchester United ever again. And you just have Joel and Avram who sit here with 20% in the background, if you like. But with what they get paid out in terms of what Sir Jim's offering now, the valuation of what he has offered for 50% is more than if Sheikh Jassim was offering for 50%, if that makes any more sense. If he only wanted, if the Sheikh only wanted 50%, Sir Jim would be offering more, essentially. But obviously Sheikh Jassim is offering more overall because he's still got another 19% of the shares to cover to make 69%. So that's, if you like, where the separation is in terms of he's bid more because he has to bid more because he's buying all of them out instead of keeping 2 of them in. In terms of would it be worth more in 3 or 4 years? It depends. There isn't a solution, and I'm not going to say here that there is an answer because there isn't. It's if Sir Jim Ratcliffe, upon getting in with 50%, if he was to make Manchester United a success and commercially they were to grow, he got a brilliant sponsorship deal. I don't know. He renegotiated the deal with Adidas, for example, and got more capital to be invested into Manchester United. If maybe a new stadium's in construction by that time, and there's, if you like, a growth, there's a vision for Manchester United in the coming years, they would take a massive loss in the short term doing all these things like a rebuild of a stadium or a renovation of Carrington or Old Trafford, whatever. Like, they would take a loss in the short term like Spurs have, but in the long term, when you get all the benefits from it, like you get the sponsorship deals, you'll get the revenue streams that you'll get from it, you might be able to host multi-sports events, concerts, like suddenly a lot of the money that you've lost, it will come back in 4 or 5 years. And then suddenly the Glazer family would use that as a way of, well, the club isn't valued, our 20% stake isn't valued more right now, but from in 3 or 4 years' time, at that stage, they will say, but when the club actually starts turning over profits again, and from what they've actually spent to remodernise Manchester United as a club, via doing that, then Manchester United, in the long run, they would get more value for their money. But, as I've said, I don't think Joel and Avram will sit here for probably 10 plus years waiting for a new stadium to come, Manchester United to be a successful team, brilliant commercially again, and also you have all the upgrades in terms of the stadium, you have the Carrington, you have the investment into all the teams, and Manchester United is a success across all things, infrastructure, all the teams, and facilities. And those things that will take at least 10 years until they are perfect, because they might be good in the short term, and it might be a short-term solution, but these are projects. These are going to take years to put in place. And Joel and Avi sitting there with 20% when they see, Darcy, Kevin, Edward, and Brian, their other 4 siblings, sitting there with, near enough £1 billion each, or thereabouts. Like, I just don't think it will sit right with them, because in 10 years, God forbid, and I'm not here to speculate, one of them might not live 10 years. You don't know. So you know what you can get here and now, but you don't know what you can get in the future, is what I'm saying. So you know what's on the table in terms of what you can have now with the Qataris, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe, you're gambling. And the Glazer family, I don't think they're going to gamble with billions of pounds. So that's why I think that makes more of a solution to the question, even though I can't give an accurate answer, because the time frame of what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is offering, like, he might do a U-turn and say, well, I don't want to buy you out at all. And then suddenly he keeps the Glazers in for however long he wants. And then suddenly this myth around it, would it be worth more or whatever, it doesn't matter. Because if he doesn't want to buy Joel and Avi out and they become his best mates or whatever, like, what's it really going to matter? It's going to matter for nothing, is it? So...
No, thanks for that, Tom. Thanks for clarity. Hopefully, Cameron, that answers your question, clarifies things. So just going back to the actual, obviously, specific Sheikh Jassim bid. So I'm just trying to just remember a few points that you were making. So how can I put it this way? What is the likelihood, do you think, Tom, that this bid will actually be that this bid will be accepted? What's the? I know it's difficult to say, right? Because we don't know this, but like, but given, because as you said, we said that this was sort of somewhat unexpected, because I think a lot of people thought that the third was the final bid. That reports are saying that it is a substantial offer, but that was something I wanted to say. It was a substantial offer, but it was still seen as less than Sir Jim's offer, which obviously would be the case given that he's, do you think that because it is still in quote substantially lower than Sir Jim has made for half of the club, that the Glazers will still dismiss it? Or like, what do you think? I know it's hard to say, but what do you think?
Ultimately, it depends on Joel and Avram. And I've said this throughout the whole process. And when we was at Friday, they had deliberated with the family. They had looked over all the offers with Rain. This was before Rain had given their recommendation and their opinions. Because, just to quote and remember, the Glazer family have hired Rain. So they are paying Rain to do this for them. They're paying for their opinion. So it'd be stupid of them to pay somebody to not actually listen to what they've got to say. And via saying that, then Rain is saying you need to pursue a full sale where possible. And then the following day, 24 hours later, there's an improved offer from the Qataris. Like, there's just too many things, like there's too many cogs that are working and they're connecting together. And then the stream flow of information is going via day by day. So the likelihood of a Sheikh Jassim bid being accepted has definitely significantly increased now, because before, when people were saying Sir Jim's in the hot seat and, he's already got one foot in the door, if you like, with his proposal, because it didn't give the Glazers exactly what they wanted in the process, because they came in saying that we want £6 billion. But it gives Joel and Avram food for thought, because it makes them think, well, we can have money and we can have what we had essentially 18 months ago, or what we wanted when we went to Apollo Investment, buy all our siblings out, and we stay with the majority shareholding that they would have had at the time, and we give Apollo a minority stake in Man United. But Apollo were pulled out on the deal when the numbers weren't adding up right to what they was willing to go to. But in this case, with Sheikh Jassim, the likelihood is significantly increased, yes, because now we know that he has done everything. Because any sort of shed of doubt where people will say that if he doesn't get the club, in hindsight, that he should have dropped just £6 billion, willy-nilly and have just gone for it. But he has effectively gone now all in, because he can't do any more. And if he's taken any of the funds out of what he was going to invest after purchase of Manchester United just to buy it, I think that shows a very high level of commitment, as to say, well, I've not had it all the way that I wanted, because I had a figure in mind to pay, and then I had the money to invest afterwards. But I've taken out of my kitty afterwards just to make sure that I buy it, in the same way that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has cut a deal just to make sure that he buys into Manchester United. So, if you like, they're on an even playing field. But now, these next few days are critical in terms of what Joel and Avram are going to do, because they're going to listen to this offer.
Of course,
Privately, they've made their minds up. Sir Jim Ratcliffe is the preferred bidder. We get cash now, and we get to stay. We get what we wanted 18 months ago. But now, Sheikh Jassim has thrown them. If you it's like throwing a dog a bone, essentially. Here's another. It's like throwing a bone with a bank card on it and saying there's more money on this card. Fetch. And now the Glazer family have to look at it from the point of view of, well, now we know that this guy can stretch to bigger lengths. And effectively, we have forced his hand on the table to say, show us the money. Show us all that what you've got. And now he has done. Because via making our minds up privately, via doing that, oh, right, suddenly now we know what, even if they choose Sir Jim, they can't go away from the deal thinking, what if? Because they know now. So there's no ifs, buts, or maybes. There's we know what we could have had, or it might be in hindsight what they go for. But the only thing now is Joel and Avram. I don't think they'll be sleeping easy these next 2 to 3 days. Me personally, anyway, because when they look at this offer, and they've got so many voices in their head, especially them two, because they're ultimately the decision makers for the whole family, because they've had the Sir Jim proposal, which they'd made their minds up on Friday night. Sir Jim was who they wanted. Then Rain had given Sheikh Jassim, they'd told him what Sir Jim had offered, the whole proposal package. They'd already notified Sir Jim that they'd done that, and he agreed to the circumstances in this case, because they have to open the playing field up because it's the final round. Sir Jim would have been informed that Sheikh Jassim was making this fourth and final bid, probably first before any medias have been leaked about it or anybody, even the sources that me and my colleagues speak to. So when these people are putting these presses out there, and the Glazer family have effectively now put Sheikh Jassim in the place where we can now know what we would have been missing out on if we do choose Sir Jim. So they've got this many voices in their head. The mind was made up on Friday. Sheikh Jassim had over the weekend to deliberate with his delegation on what to do, whether to bid again or not. I heard on Monday that if he has to bid again, he will. And long and behold, he has done upon Rain telling the Glazer family on Monday, pursue a full buyout where possible. And now you have the full buyout option at even more money than what was being offered before. So effectively, the likelihood of Sheikh Jassim's bid being accepted has significantly increased, because he has given his all now. He said, deal or no deal, you take it or leave it. If you either take it now and you select me and that's it, or I'm going elsewhere. And look, Sheikh Jassim, from what I know anyway, he would never buy another football club. But the Qatari state could always prop up another one of their members of the family to go and buy Liverpool, to go and buy Spurs, to go and buy Arsenal. It doesn't have to be Sheikh Jassim to do it. It can be somebody else. So effectively, Manchester United could get the money from Sheikh Jassim from Qatar through Sheikh Jassim, or another football club could, because the way I know of it anyway with Qatar is they want a Premier League club, and they have looked at it, and they tried to buy Manchester United in 2009 when they made an offer, and they were unsuccessful at the time, because I think they made like an offer of £1.1 billion at the time, and Man United was retail valued at like 1.5 billion. But Joel and Avram didn't have to really sell then. The Glazer family didn't have to sell. And it was the similar time with the Red Knights sort of rumours and things like that at the time. And then 12 months later, they went and bought PSG in 2010. So they've wanted a Premier League club for many years, and they've always looked at Manchester United as the one that they wanted. And in 2010, I think they looked at it as, it's almost like a love interest. It was the one that got away. And they now have the chance of, they messed it up one time before, are they going to let it slip through their hands a second time? And via doing this fourth and final bid, I think this is in terms of now, right, we don't want to lose. It's not a case of winning, but it's a case of I don't want to lose it at all costs, because they will invest elsewhere, whether it be one of the other teams that I've just mentioned, or they will remodernise and invest more into PSG. But as I say, a Premier League club is what they want. They want the rivalry with their Middle Eastern, if you like, counterparts. They want the rivalry with the Saudis, with Newcastle. They want the rivals across the city in Manchester with Abu Dhabi. They want this. So if you want it, you buy in now and you do it, or they will go elsewhere. So the long and whole story is Sheikh Jassim suggested that he would bid again, and he has. And now Joel and Avram now have got to think. It's almost as if, do you stick or twist? Stick with what you'd already agreed upon privately as a family, that Sir Jim's what you're going with, or does a little more money go that far for Joel and Avram to think, right, we can't turn it down now. We can't, because we might never get this ever again. And with what Rain recommended to them, they won't get this ever again. So now is the time where you have to make a big life decision. You're middle-aged men, take the money and run, or stick with it and gamble that you'll get more in the future. But there's the risk and the doubt that you wouldn't. So it's all, like I say, the power now. Sheikh Jassim has done all he can. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has done all he can. Rain have done all they can in terms of advertising and their recommendation of what to do. Now Joel and Avram have to second guess themselves. Do we stick, or do we twist and do we go the other direction and sell with our other four siblings? And that is at the point where we're at.
Thanks again for that, Tom. Really appreciating, guys. Obviously, make sure that you like the video, subscribe if you're new. Get your questions in. Obviously, if people are watching who have some questions for Tom, get them in as we obviously continue this intriguing conversation regarding the final hours of what is, quite frankly, a big thing for me, Tom. Right, is that the frustrating thing about this whole thing is that is the indecisiveness of the Glazers. And the reality is that at this point, I just don't see how our transfer window now is not going to be affected. I really, really don't see. I don't, maybe in the next week, I would expect a decision within the next 2 weeks. And then we're literally at the end of the season. Then you have to finalize everything, go for the Premier League approval and all these different sort of things. So we're already into some transfers. And that's why, when the news of Kim Min-jae and all these different things are coming out, I was like, well, yeah, I don't doubt that Manchester United and the scouting organs haven't talked to these players, because they're still going to have to do their job as scouters. But in terms of actually the money being available, as I think you alluded to yesterday, I don't think it's there. So how can we be excited about signing players when we literally don't know what the funds are to sign said players? So, as much as I want this car and I want this, the worst possible situation is that you have a situation where the Jim and the Glazers stay. And they decide to stay. And we're now halfway into the transfer window and we can't get anybody,
Well, I think the medium, and to put, I think, a couple of people at ease, is the real trick is, if a preferred bidder gets picked, probably by the end of this week, and it becomes public, because it has already been picked privately, but if it becomes common knowledge publicly, and it's Sir Jim or Qatar, and with Sheikh Jassim, you suddenly then, you're basically in the middle of May. You then have 2 weeks, and 2 weeks, because due diligence has already been done because of how long this process has gone on for. When they select an offer, that is pretty much it. They just have to sign on the dotted line to say, we're selling to XYZ, we're selling this percentage for this price. And that's pretty much it. So, in theory, you could have a deal with Sir Jim, or you could have a deal with Sheikh Jassim agreed by maybe the end of June. If this process was to do as I say, you get a preferred bidder publicly announced via the end of this week, you could have a deal agreed in 10 days. It shouldn't take that long to agree the deal. But you then get to a stage in June where a deal is agreed, and then you, like you say, G, you have to go to the Premier League and do the owners and directors test. You have to do UEFA's fair and clarity laws around club ownership, and if you have multi-club ownership, because PSG and you have the same thing with Sir Jim with Nice, so there has to be the separation there. Or in Sir Jim's case, what is he going to do with Nice Football Club? Like, you know where I'm getting at there. You get to that stage, but via that stage, if the Premier League and UEFA approve that he is a suitable owner, upon first look, not actually signing off on the dotted line, but first look, they will allow them to be an acting owner. And what I mean by an acting owner is they will give whomever the preferred bidder is a license to operate in the transfer market, bearing in mind they have to comply with financial fair play laws. So effectively, they don't own the club, but they have their hands on what they can do with the club, providing the Glazer family agree to that as well. So all the governing bodies will agree to allow them to operate as a club, but because they don't fully own it, they can only spend up to what amount FFP allows them to, which, from my understanding, is 100 to 120 million. That's no player sales at all. So whomever gets into that sort of position can only spend that until they buy the football club. So even if Manchester United sold players in the region of up to a net profit of £100 million, that doesn't help the owners in the slightest until they buy the football club fully, or until they actually remove the Glazers from the office, or they get control in Sir Jim's case. So effectively, they can operate in the transfer market, but they can't operate fully, if that makes a bit of a better understanding. Because they would be an acting owner, where a deal's been in place, they don't own the club, but providing the governing bodies allow it upon first glance, and as I've reiterated before, the Premier League owners and directors test for both Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim should be no problem from the laws and the regulations that are in place right now. But the only thing, like I say, with the separation with UEFA is Sheikh Jassim has it a lot easier to create separation with QSI than Sir Jim does with Nice, because Sir Jim already owns a club. Whereas, well, he actually owns, he already owns two clubs. So he owns Lausanne as well. I think it's the Swedish team. I could be wrong, but he already owns two clubs anyway. But Nice is the more mundane European sort of club. But he cannot create separation because he's already an owner. So the only thing he can say is, what are you going to do with Nice Football Club? Are you going to keep it? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to accept that Manchester United and Nice can never play in the same European competition? What are you going to do? In the same case with Sheikh Jassim, where the 9-2 Foundation is his golden ticket. It's like his Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's his golden ticket that he can use to go to UEFA and say, I'm a private individual with a private organisational business that is buying Manchester United Football Club. And it's called the 9-2 Foundation. And it just so happens it's based in Qatar. They can't touch it with a barge pole, really. Because so long as the business is legit and it's not Qatari backed in terms of the government control that business, so long as it's a private business, which if he's buying it as a private individual, then it will be a private business. That's how it works. Then effectively the takeover for Sheikh Jassim should go through. But they have to deep dive into these things. So you could have a situation where, like I say, they can become an acting owner. They can spend up to 100 or 120 million pounds, but they could still not fully control the club by the end of the transfer window. Therefore, the other available funds would not be there to then do business with for the rest of the summer. But upon either of them getting the club, passing over checks and that, I don't know, say if it dragged until, let's say October, God forbid, it dragged until to that long.
Wait, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you for a second, then, Tom. Just when you just bringing that, just with that point on that point, is it possible that this whole that we're just going to get a continued bidding process? Like, essentially, what's the likelihood that Sir Jim? Do you think anyway that Sir Jim comes in? He's obviously it's now in the open now. That Sir Jim proposed another deal. That Sheikh Jassim comes in with something else. Like, what's the likelihood that this turns into like a long, drawn out, protracted bidding war?
there can't be a bidding war when you only have one person who has the money to bid. I guess that's the best way that I can answer that is because Sir Jim, he doesn't have the money to buy all of it, and he has to buy half of it. Therefore, he doesn't have the money to bid anymore, if that makes any sense. Right now, unless a bank was willing to release him more funds in a loan or a debt, but then it's harder for him to then transfer the money over in time because a deal could already be agreed or whatever. So effectively, Sir Jim is stuck. He's put himself in quicksand because he's sinking and he can't get himself out of it because he doesn't have the funds to battle against Qatar. Hence why he's had to cut a deal to leave Joel and Avram in. Because if you want me to be honest, do I honestly think if he had the money that he would be doing this deal? No, I really don't. Because I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe would want all of the Glazer family out because he wouldn't have that burden there that he's the man who kept some of the Glazer family in just so he could buy Manchester United. I don't think he likes that as an image for himself because he portrays himself as being a boyhood Manchester United fan and so on and so forth. But he knows he can't compete financially with the Qataris. So in that case, he's had to cut a deal. He's been forced into it. Whereas the Qataris in this case, do I believe that they would bid again and again and again and again? No, because this is it. They've already reiterated that and stated that from close sources that when they wired the official offer over to Rain that advised the ownership model that is in place now, this is it. You take it or you leave it, and we go. And we're not going to go privately and try and strike a deal with them. We're not going to, overlook the process. You either pick us with this proposal that's here now, or you forget us. And we will then invest our money elsewhere in another business or, unfortunately, maybe in a rival football club in the Premier League, because that's what they desire and want. But the likelihood of any more changes happening in terms of proposals, bids or price tags is very unlikely. Unless, like I say, Sir Jim Ratcliffe gets some sort of funds, pledged to him from a bank like JP Morgan, who have been bankrolling him with loans and bonds to buy into Manchester United. Same thing with Goldman Sachs. Like, if one of them released more funds, then suddenly he has more money to fiddle about with. But at this moment in time, he doesn't. Whereas Sheikh Jassim now, he had the money to wiggle about with after the third round of bids, and he's now used that with this final proposal. And this final proposal is it. So even if he does have the money sitting there, which, if you want me to be honest with you, he's got £800 million of a pledged investment after buying the club. So he does have the money to wiggle about with, but he's saying, I'm not going to. And effectively, he's drawn the line, and he's drawn the firing lines as to, now that is it. I'm not going to do any more. I've danced to your hymn sheet for long enough. Are you going to be my dance partner or not? I'm going to come and do a deal with me. If you don't, sayonara and go and do something with Sir Jim. If not, come to me, come to your sugar daddy with all the money, and let's talk numbers and we'll do a deal for you. So the likelihood of it is very unrealistic, but I understand the questioning because the process could take as long as it can take. The Glazer family have decided upon to take it out this long, and they've never been quick at anything. Hiring a manager, firing a manager, signing a player, nothing. Never been quick at anything. So I can understand the sentiment as to why the question gets asked, but it's not a case of they're going to go on and on and on and back and forth like boxers swinging it out in a ring. It's not like that. It's you choose the preferred bidder, then all the governing bodies will get in place. And effectively, the reason why I say the Premier League and owners and directors test and the UEFA clarity laws and fairity laws shouldn't really be a problem for either of the two ownership bidders is because Rain cannot advise them to be the preferred bidder to buy a football club legally if they aren't legally due and legally bound to pass them tests effectively. So Rain wouldn't be doing their jobs properly if there was a complication, if there was a problem. Why do you think, like, when the reports came out about they wanted to know, like, the source of wealth, where the money and the funds were coming from, like sufficient proof of funds, effectively, who's paying it, where it's coming from, where the investments, you know, are going to be paid, how many installments, etc. Basically, all of the logistics. Because if they don't do that, and then UEFA or the Premier League then find something to sling at them, well, the Glazer family can sue Reign and say, well, you didn't do your jobs properly in terms of you didn't check these guys out properly, and now you've scuppered the whole multi-billion-pound deal for us. Right, we want to take some billions off of you. And then suddenly you're then in a prolonged lawsuit battle over you didn't do your checks properly. So basically, we fired you because you didn't do your job properly. So there is, I guess, the complications and problems, but if it was to be dragged out, it would be dragged out because of UEFA and the Premier League having to do the sufficient checks, which, love it or hate it, I think Manchester United fans would hate it because it affects the transfer window, but they can understand it because you need to know who's buying the football club. You don't want, like I say, you don't want it in a couple of years' time to be in the situation that Manchester City are in, for example, with these hundreds breaches of FFP charges and things like that. Like, the Premier League are doing these tests to ensure that that doesn't happen, and they put suitable candidates in place. That's why I feel like they've toughened the rules, but they've never blocked complete state ownership. And maybe in hindsight, that's why the Premier League does as well as it does right now, because you already have 2 state-backed clubs already in the league. Well, you had 3 when Roman Abramovich was in here with the Russian money, because you had the Russian money, you had Abu Dhabi money, and you then had Saudi money that was all in the league. So you had 3 wealthy nations who were backing a football club in this league. And then suddenly, like I said, the Qataris want that as well. They want in the war, if you like. The chess game of the Premier League.
Of course.
And as I said, they've decided upon Manchester United is the king of the chessboard, effectively. And if they don't get the king, well, unfortunately, they're going to go for the queen out and then they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that might be a Spurs. Maybe, you know,
Spurs. Well, I'd say Spurs is the
Spurs is probably the more likely because
Yeah.
Daniel Levy, I think you can. Daniel Levy and Jamie Lewis, I think you can.
Do
a good deal with, and everything's already built for you. So
exactly,
like,
no
what's
money
the
needed for
problem,
the
really?
stadium, nothing like that.
Nope.
Yeah, no.
Exactly. You're just basically taking on somebody else's project and riding with it because you've paid a couple of billions. But like I say, I'd be very surprised if it was Sheikh Jassim who would front a bid for another football club. But you could just get another member of the Qatari royal family who could do that, who might be a Spurs fan. You know, listen, people can love it or hate it. Like, you might have some random billionaire that, like I said, comes out of the Middle East. You could have a Saudi businessman who wants to buy one of those football clubs, but he has a multi-billion-pound Saudi company or something like that. Like, you just don't ever know. But when state money is already in a league, it's very hard to then not pass it through to let other people come in. Once you let them in, you can never get rid of them, effectively. Apart from what happened, say, with Roman Abramovich, where a nation that was funding the bids and then politics took over instead of football. And love it or hate it, people, politics is bigger than football. So that, in hindsight, clarifies what I've just said.
Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate it, buddy. Shout out to my Wada in the chat who says, I don't think the transfer window is an issue since both bidders and the Glazers support rights and high as long as there is a current minimum budget. No, I think the issue is more the access to funds. That's the concern thing here. It's not so much that there wouldn't be money available. It's that until the transfer window until this takeover is over, there is no where the funds essentially going to be coming from. If that makes any sense. Like, there's no. So while we can still we can speak to agents and clubs and have deals, and essentially all you can do is you can say, right, okay, we're interested in you, we want to get you, but we don't know how much money we can effectively bid for you. And that's not good enough for Napoli, Milan, etc. That's the big problem. So let me just quickly get. That's what I think about that anyway. So I see your point, Mo. But I think that the issue is that at the end of the day, the takeover is delaying Manchester United from actually going out and securing and making bids for players. Like I suspect United was interested in Alexis McAllister, but they're not going to go for him because Liverpool can say, okay, yeah, we'll meet with your entourage, we're going to bid this, and it's done. And that's the issue here. Joey says, is Sheikh Jassim a good dancer? Well, I don't think Tom has that insight. I'm not sure. I don't think he has that insight, so Lucky Singh is obviously, is obviously pro Qatar. This is an interesting comment here by Tamil, I think. Tamil says, don't get fooled, I seems to mean fooled by all this takeover talk. Glazers will never sell everything. Also, all this no money on transfer window is all lies. Don't be shocked if Qatar goes for Liverpool FC. Tom, do you have any comments about that?
Well, all I'm going to say is if they weren't going to sell, maybe not sell everything now, they will in the long term, because if you sell some of something, if you sell partial of something, well, what's the point in keeping hold of the rest of it? Of which, like I say, if they take the Sajib offer, you sell some of it, but then you still have 20% of it, but you're not going to hold on to that 20% of it forever. You're going to want to sell it at some point in time. Just like now, they're going to want to sell it now. And this is why I say they can sell it all now for the best price that they will ever get, or they can gamble in the long term and hope that it sustains. But like I say, with the Qatari thing, for example, the Qatari sports minister, for example, I can't remember his name, slipped my mind. I'm not good with names of Middle Eastern billionaires or businessmen or government officials, so I'm not going to butcher names or anything like that. But the Qatari sports minister who led the World Cup bids, when they actually won the World Cup, and they made the pledge of the investments to build the new stadiums for the World Cup and everything. He's actually a Liverpool fan, from what I hear anyway, and from what I know. So there's no reason in the case of where you couldn't have somebody like that prop up and say, well, I'm a Liverpool fan, I want to set up a foundation, the Shankly Foundation or the Stephen Gerrard Foundation or something like that, and do what Sheikh Jassim is doing effectively, but in the case to buy Liverpool Football Club, there is no problem in doing that. Or this the thing with Qatar is they could still do, if you like, the dirty on Manchester United in terms of Sheikh Jassim could still buy Manchester United, but because he's not he's not linked to the government, Qatar could still buy a minority stake in another Premier League club, but it would only be a minority stake. For example, QSI, who own Paris Saint-Germain Football Club, Nasser Al-Khelaifi had flirted with the idea of investing £1 billion for a 20% stake in Tottenham Hotspur, for example. Like those little things like that, it makes, it makes for a plan, but it wouldn't impact what would happen if Sheikh Jassim was to buy Manchester United. So long as separation is created, which I don't think he would have come through this hoo-ha and this much pressure and time if he didn't believe he could pass it through. Like, you just wouldn't. Why would you do this to yourself? You give yourself so many sleepless nights for the sake of something that you don't know if you have control of or not, in terms of will I pass the test or not? Well, all I'm going to say is, when he came to England as a boy to do his education and all the different things like that, funnily enough, people who don't know or not, if you went up to ask Prince Charles or you went up to ask Prince Harry, a journalist or whatever, and you ask them if you know who Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani is, they will say yes, because they went to the same educational school as him at the same age, the same time when they were at school. So if people want to talk about it, you let this guy in to be educated here. So I think you're going to let him buy into a football club if he wants to do so. And government approval with Qatar and the UK relations is never a problem. It's never going to be a problem, because you ever need the source of gas, gas is more of what Qatar are embezzled in, if you like, rather than oil. But people will say, oh, well, oil me up's a better saying, isn't it, rather than gas me up. So Man United fan base gets gassed up anyways, doesn't it?
All the time.
So. All the time. There you go. So
appreciate that, buddy, man. Appreciate that. I'm just thinking if there's any other questions. And so Cameron, obviously, with the thanks, says, thanks, mate. With Ratcliffe's bid, the other Glazers are going to get roughly 1 billion each. Wait, with Ratcliffe's bid, the other Glazers are going to get roughly 1 billion each? Because if so, there's no way Avram and Joel are going to wait on gambling. Do you mean Sheikh Jassim's bid as opposed to Ratcliffe's? Because I don't think with Ratcliffe's bid, the Glazers are all going to get 1 billion each. Or am I reading that wrong?
No, they wouldn't get 1 billion because obviously I don't know the official numbers, but if I had to put my money on what he's offering for 50%, I'd probably say around about 2.6, 2.8 to probably not as far as 3, but I'd probably say about 2.8, 2.5 or something like that, like in that ballpark region. But there's 4 of them, so it doesn't give them the billion each effectively. But in the long term, if they sold the 20% and Joel and Avram got 2 billion for it, then the numbers would roughly add up, right? But it wouldn't add up in terms of the process. Like I said, it doesn't add up in terms of here and now, but it could do in the future. But you don't know how Manchester United will do in the future because you don't know what Sir Jim Ratcliffe would do with the club. That's what I'm trying to get. And because he's not made any pledges that he will build a new stadium or redevelop or invest 2p into the football teams or 200 million, whatever, like, because he's not made these pledges, you don't actually know what he's going to do with the football club. And that's why I don't see how the Glazer family can. I don't think they trust Sir Jim Ratcliffe because I think they know that he would go back on his word. Because a gentleman's agreement means nothing. A verbal agreement means nothing unless you have it in writing. And because he's not made any pledges in writing of what he's going to do, that's why I don't believe that Joel and Avram will sit there pretty, although they've made their minds up that they prefer him. Like, use it as gamesmanship, use it to sling mud at Sheikh Jassim to make him bid more, and then long and behold, he has bid more. Like, do what you've got to do. But at the end of the day, the guy knows his stuff in Sheikh Jassim. So, at the end of the day, he's gone all in. And I don't think you can take that away from him. If he gets the club, doesn't get the club, whatever anybody's opinions are, I don't want to hear that Sheikh Jassim didn't do enough to try and buy Manchester United. Because if Boot was on the other foot and Sir Jim Ratcliffe was doing the exact same thing and Sheikh Jassim was in the other position, we'd be saying the same thing with Sir Jim. Well, he did all he could. We can only say, God, God, as people say, God loves a trier. And he tried. But if he doesn't succeed, he doesn't succeed. And like I say, the money will go elsewhere because Qatar as a nation, love it or hate it, they want a Premier League club because that is what's sought after and in demand at the point in time. They value having a Premier League club. Whereas in the last 5 years ago, Sir Jim Ratcliffe said in an interview, Premier League clubs are overvalued in terms of what it would take to buy one of them. But 5 years later, he's tried to buy 2 of them, one of which he failed with Chelsea, and one of which he might win or might not win in Manchester United. But if he fails in getting 2 of them, I would be shocked if he tried to get another, because I don't see where the business makes sense for him to go after this, to buy another Premier League club. You've had 2 goes at it, and you've blown both of them. So I don't know where it makes sense for him to do so.
Thanks for that, Tom. Really appreciate it. So obviously on our guys, if you have any questions, obviously we'll potentially begin to wrap around things. But if you have any questions, guys, please get them in as I sort of read to your comments. We'll take a bit of a break and to promote the merch again. But yeah, let me just have a quick look into the chat. Obviously, Lucky Singh, very active. Appreciate it, buddy. Azim, when you talk about Bournemouth, is that at 20 minutes the Bournemouth? Well, to be honest, it's away, so I don't really see what impact it will do as much at Bournemouth. If I'm honest, Lucky Singh, if you're gonna do the protest, then it should actually be done at home, probably at home to Chelsea, which will be next week. Personally, because on a away fixture, I just don't think it's. If anything, it'll just benefit Bournemouth, and we do need to secure top 4 for the Champions League next season. So I will take it that way. Let's have a look. Most United fans want Qatar in, says Ryan. And Irish Road Racing says most United fans, all of us do. Well, you'd be surprised. There are a lot of There's a lot of fans that online and some of the well-to-do players that secretly are pro Sajim. There are, they have issues regarding the Qatar's political situation, etc. And then there's also, quite frankly, the British bias. Sajim is a British billionaire who is from Manchester, local lad, all the rest of it. There is an element of British bias and local bias towards Sajim, like there is with players. Oh, look at Rashford, look at all these British, English players that often get protected, whereas the same players, it's like I compare Anthony and Sancho this season, for example. Anthony gets a lot of, there wasn't that much difference in terms of the amount the United paid for Anthony and Sancho. Anthony was about, was it 75, 80? Sancho was 75. There wasn't that much difference between the two. And Sancho has been at United for longer. And yet Anthony gets a lot more criticism than Sancho gets. And I'd argue that Anthony has done more this season, roughly, than Sancho has. So why does Anthony get more criticism than Sancho? It's the British bias, So and we're seeing the whole thing in this this whole debacle in the media, and that there's very much been a very much pro Sajim outlet, to the point that I remember, I think it was Sky, and they brought in Kasper Schmeichel from Nice. I'm like, why are we he's gonna, of course he's not gonna say anything bad about his boss. He's getting paid a lot of money to be in goal at Nice. Why? And they're not even in the qualifying for Champions League, whatever. So why, of course, he's not gonna say anything bad. And yet I don't think I've seen a single British outlet journalist actually bring on someone that is close or knows the Qatari camp to say, hey, this is who Sheikh Jassim is, this is what he wants, blah, blah, blah. Nothing, zero, nada. It's all been Sajim. So there's your bias for you right there.
Well, look at it, I guess, from this way, G. The British media, they're going to back their own, aren't they? Let's face it, they're going to. He's a British, I don't know about anybody else's passports or anybody in the comments or anything. If you're a Brit, you'd expect your own media to back you, because if they didn't back you, I think you'd be getting a bit like, what, my own countrymen, my own patriots don't even want to back me. It's only the same thing with Sheikh Jassim in this case, because he has a lot of investment interest in the US and he's based in Qatar. All of the Middle Eastern news articles and sources, whether they're from Saudi, whether they're from the Arab Emirates, Qatar, wherever they're from, or in the US, they're going to back their guy at the end of the day. So both processes and both parties are backing their men, which you'd expect. So is anybody really surprised that the British media don't want, if you like, the agenda against the Qataris, because they want to scrutinise them over the fact of it might be state-owned, it might be state-backed, and yada, yada. Well, so Jim Ratcliffe pollutes the economy and pollutes the environment. Does anybody ever talk about that with what his business does?
No, they
and this
don't.
is what I mean. Bring like I said, like I always say myself. Anyway, I will bring an unbiased view out of it. I don't care about Sajim. I don't care about Qatar. I care about Man United Football Club as a whole, because I'm a Manchester United fan. And anybody who states that, if they're a Manchester United fan, you need to see what is best for Manchester United as a football club. The pros and cons have already been put there. You can go with Qatar. They've said what they'll do, but you'll always be scrutinised as a football club for sports washing. You can go with Sajim, who you don't know anything of what he's going to do, but he'll keep two of the glazers in you. You've processed it to get rid of for 18 years. So you've done 18 years for nothing. And then also, in addition to that, you've then got Sir Jim Ratcliffe in the door in terms of you don't know what he's going to do, but also he doesn't probably know what he's going to do, because he probably doesn't expect to even get the club when he's going up against Qatar. You can say about confidence and nostalgia, you'll be scrutinised with the Qataris for sports washing, but you'll be criticising Sir Jim because you don't know what he's going to do. So it's either the devil you know or the devil you don't know, effectively. Do you go with the Qataris, where you know what you're going to get, you know you're going to be scrutinised for sports washing, but you know what you're actually getting? Or do you go with Sir Jim, where, sod all, you're taking a big risk and a big leap of faith when you've had 18 years of pretty much what you're going to get with Sir Jim, where the unknown. You don't know what he's going to do. Like, weigh up the probabilities and problems. Like I say, come in it from the middle. Don't care about Qatar. Don't care about Sir Jim. Care about Manchester United Football Club. And like I say, you see it down the middle, and journalists can pick what side they want to go on. The British media is going to back their boy. The Arabian sources and the US sources, because he has business interests in Qatar, have business interests in the US, they're going to back their boy. And nostalgia plays always the part in it, because you're going to back your own people. It's simple.
Fair enough, Tom. Thanks, man, for appreciate it. I've actually got just a few more questions to ask, and then obviously works. It's obviously getting late. Man FC Tom says Qatar will clear the debt, bring Manchester United back up the top with City, Newcastle, and Queen. Well, you'd like to think so. You hope so. But obviously, anything can happen. But I think, if we're being real, I think a lot of people are hoping that Qatar will obviously bring Manchester United back to its former glory. So before I interject, guys, come on, get those likes up on the vid, engage. We've got a GOAT journalist here, man. Come on, engage. You want more of this content, so hopefully in the summer we'll be doing some transfer news stuff as well. So please, if you're new, subscribe to that channel, like. There's obviously 50 plus people watching. We should have 50 likes, guys. Come on, push up to 50 likes. It doesn't cost you anything. Please like the vid. It really helps the channel. So as a small upcoming channel, really appreciate it. Irish says our club has been suffering a long time now. Anyone that knows what's good for our club knows Qatar is the way. It brings the most positive debt, training grounds in, wants to keep up. And I think that's the thing, at the end of the day. But what you need to understand, Irish, is that the Glazers just don't care. They don't care. Like, if anyone with a brain would think like, right, okay, we have a bunch of people who have said they are willing to remove the debt. Like, in terms of value, the Qatar offer on paper is the best. They've said they'll remove the debt, and that's separate money from the money they're giving to Qatar. So they're going to remove the debt, give obviously give the amount of money to the Glazer family, and obviously put in investments for the stadium, for the training ground, women's teams, etc. So for clear value, any sensible person who actually give a damn about football will go, this is the best value. But because the Glazers only care about themselves and have always only cared about themselves, they're thinking, oh, but you know what? We might get potentially more money later down the line, even though it means the stadium might be, we have to take out more money for the stadium, that the debt will still be on Manchester United, that we won't have as much money to invest in players, etc. That's the reality, guys. So if it was a sensible person who genuinely loved the club, even if it didn't, Qatar would have probably had the club by now. Because to keep it a stack, and for anyone in the chat that says, "Oh, Sheikh Jim didn't try enough," Manchester United is not worth $6 billion. It is not the most valuable club on planet Earth. I would agree with you if it was the most valuable club, probably mid 2000s. Then yes, maybe I'll give you that. But now, with where Manchester United are, with how they've been affected, we haven't won a title, guys, in more than 10 years, a major trophy in more than 10 years. And you're saying we're worth $6 billion? We're not worth $6 billion, guys. The Glazers specifically put that there because if we're honest, guys, they wanted partial investment. They wanted investment from someone to come in, to fund the stadium, to keep them there. That's what Avram and Joel wanted anyway.
Yeah.
That's the reality, and whatever you say about Qataris, they're giving an offer which I suspect will be maybe close to 5.5 billion to say this is it, take it or leave it, guys. It is what it is. Still far more than any, come on, guys, come on. Right. Let's have a look. So yeah, that's just my mini rant there. Time said 5 billion. They know it's more. Okay, that's what the Time's saying. Jarvis, shout out to Jarvis, says big up Red Devil. Thank you very much, buddy. Shout out to David who says Qatar in, Sheikh Jassim in, Qatar, and a lot of Qatar is in. Qatar, you're more than welcome at United, says Jamie Wayne. You're willing to save our club. You've earned my respect. And United says, great show, Artist and Tom. Yes, thank you. Thank you to Tom again, as always, has graced us. Really appreciate it. But Tom says, Man FC Tom says, Avram was spotted at his dad's return on, by the way. This is the likely reason for the huge bid. Maybe, possibly, maybe. They have more positives than St. Jim. Radcliffe talks about being advanced as young boys, so he of all people should know they are bad for the club. I mean, I don't believe. I just think a lot of that is just PR, guys. You know, yeah, a lot of that is PR, man. It's PR. Oh yeah, I love the club since childhood, blah blah. Like, you know, it's actually pathetic. It's actually pathetic how so many people are bought in, can be bought in to that nonsense where it's like, okay, but what actually are your plans for the club? I don't know whether it's a British people thing. I don't know whether it's a local thing. I don't know whether it's an ignorance thing, race thing. I don't know, but it's so frustrating that so many people can think, oh, because he's a local person, because he looks like us, that automatically means that he's going to just do. He's going to run the club well. Like, what the hell? That means, and this is the problem with this sometimes with people in this fan base. It's like, oh yeah, get the players, get the class of '92 in, get Gary Neville to have a job, get all these people that know the club, get all these people. It's like, guys, for goodness sake, we're Manchester United. We should be going for the best and being the best. And if going for the best means that they actually work for Liverpool for 15 years, I don't care. Because we need to win trophies. We need to get back to competing. We can't compete if we're just going to rely on nostalgia and local merchants. It's as simple as that, guys.
True.
Simple as that. Anyway, sorry, minor rants away. Cameron again says, Tom, mate, since Radcliffe is putting the debt on Ineos, how much could United spend as max? That's an interesting question. Do you think that will affect forward? Go on.
The problem with Sir Jim Ratcliffe is he said he's putting the debt on Ineos, but the problem with saying that is he's not said how much. And this is what I mean, where Sir Jim Ratcliffe can say, I'll put the debt on Ineos's books. Are you putting all of it? Half of it? 20% of it? Because if you're only buying 50%, and you've still got Joel and Avram there with 20% who effectively caused the debt to happen, like, you basically only own half of something that you have control of, but then you effectively have to clear it out to then be able to operate like Cameron's saying here, where to operate then fully to the maximum, so Man United can spend the maximum or whatever. That's just the problem that it is. But in terms of if he put all of the debt on Ineos's books, and he stabilised Manchester United in terms of they were a better selling club where they sold a lot more of the players that they do for profits, and then the net profits that they make from selling players in comparison to what they spend, and then you get the net spend. Manchester United, I would say, like I've said, FFP regulates for Man United to only spend in the region of 100 to 120 million pounds this summer. That's without player sales, though. But if Sir Jim Ratcliffe, in hindsight, was the owner right now, and the situation was this, and Man United didn't have any of the debt, and they were a better selling club, Manchester United commercially, if they were stable and they were a lot better and they didn't have the debt and the repayments on transfer targets and things like that, Manchester United can average to spend 250 million pounds every single summer window. And as a medium, you could say, well, you can spend 200 million pounds every summer, and then you always have a safety net of 50 million pounds if you need that one player in January that takes you from, say, you need, like what we did a couple of years ago with Bruno Fernandes. You take out of what you would use in the summer to get a player that you need mid-season here and now, if you can get that player effectively. So 200 to 250 million pounds. And honestly, even you can say what you want about the Qataris and the financial package that they have behind them. I would probably say the same thing. I wouldn't expect them to come steamrolling and say there's a 300 million war chest every single summer, but it's not about how much money you have to spend, it's how you spend it.
Of course.
And I think in terms of Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he's prepared to put proper football brains in place. Same thing with the Qataris. They want the best in class. Sir Jim Ratcliffe sees Paul Mitchell as the best in class in terms of football operating. The Qataris, I don't know who they see as that, but hence in what their predecessors and their links to what they've done at QSI, they brought in one of the best sporting directors in Luis Campos. So I think they're going to go down the similar model. A Michael Edwards, a Paul Mitchell, maybe even a Luis Campos, and try and steal him from that, you know, the claws and the jups of their predecessors at PSG. I don't know. But they will get somebody who can operate that. And in many cases, with how they're going to select a CEO, Richard Arnold, I would be very surprised if he stayed long term at Manchester United. He might be here for say if somebody took over for the summer, but in the long term, I'd fail to see how they could keep him in. And people will say, oh, you know, the dream scenario would be somebody like an Edwin van der Sar, done it at Ajax, ex-Manchester United player, somebody who's made Ajax a success, knows the club recruitment, but also the commercial side of a club, knows how to operate a proper football club in the right way, effectively. But I'd be very surprised if they did something like that, because these people know nothing about somebody like an Edwin van der Sar. If I had to take bets on who I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe would put in, I think he'd put in someone like Sir Dave Brailsford to run Manchester United Football Club, if I'm being perfectly honest, and take him out of the Ineos Sporting Network and put him as Manchester United CEO. Knows how sport works, but also knows how to run a financial side of a sporting entity, because he's run the Ineos Sporting catalogue or group of ownerships and investments that they have. Sheikh Jassim in the case, he might put his personal advisor in there, Fadi Bakos, for example, who's been his personal aide for over 15 years. Like, they've been, if you like, mid-20 friends when they met and everything, and then they've rose up the ranks of being bankers and, you know, investment people. So it's difficult, because I think the obvious choice would be choose somebody that you know and you trust, but if they have the qualifications to go with what I've just said as well, know and trust, then it makes perfect sense, doesn't it, really? And that's why I think Sir Dave Brailsford would make sense for Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And in Sheikh Jassim's case, Fadi Bakos, what's the guy's name again, sorry? Sheikh Shabazz, who's one of his personal aides, who's the president of the 9-2 Foundation, for example. Like, it would make sense to choose somebody who's been in the journey to buy it with you, effectively, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And thanks for that, Tom. Just quickly, just read some, and then we'll begin to round up. So I know it's late. It's late in Britain anyway. I don't know where everyone else in the rest of the world. Obviously, a lot of people around the world are watching. Some people it's probably like early hours of the morning. Some people it's afternoon. Some people it's early evening. So, but yes, it's midnight midnight over here in the UK. Area C Tom says, if Glazers stay, the most United will get is 100 million spending. This is worth absolutely nothing in this day. That's a fair point. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's worth absolutely nothing. It depends on the scouting, but unfortunately, United scouts aren't the best. When you look at the players that Brighton got, they would probably get a decent amount for that money. You know, how much they pay for Alexis McAllister, who's now World Cup winner, Caicedo, Mitoma, Evan Ferguson. Probably all those players amounted to less
than 10 million.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, definitely all those four players were less than 100 million. So, but that's what good scouting does for you, you know. Yeah. Dave says, we do know what we're getting with Sir Jim. He won't clear the debt because he can't afford to, and he'll run the club badly. Just look at his French club, Nice. Okay, damning there. Tom, so 4 fat Glazers want 3 billion, and you're telling me they will let the other 2 fat rat Glazers split 3 billion between 2 of them. Wouldn't the other 4 greedy Glazers be upset?
They wouldn't be upset because they don't really have as much as I say as Avram and Joel, because the way the shares work, it's not as a family that they own it. they own individual shares, if that makes sense. So
Yes.
I'd have to reiterate and double check, but not to speculate. If I had to guess, I would say Joel and Avram between them probably have 20, maybe 25% of the shares between the two of them, or around about that sort of figure, 15 or 20 each. So they have like 35% shares of Manchester United from that side of the family. But then the other 34% could be made up of the other four siblings who have 5% each, or 10. One has 10%, the other has 2, 3, 4, whatever. So that's how it works in terms of moving the money around in terms of what shares. But the way that they've run this process, they've run it as they've totaled the whole shares up as a family. So any of the money that they make would be as a family, and then any partial sale or full sale, they would then divide the money out how the shares decide upon who owns how much of the club, essentially. That's how it works. But because Malcolm Glazer was the ultimate owner at the time, and then because it's fallen to his children, and then, you know, their children or siblings or whatever, suddenly then you have a split, because then you have a family of, you know, 6 members who own different percentages, rather than you have one person own all of the percentage.
Of course,
That's how it works. So I don't think they would be knocked off and upset, because they don't really have a say in it, because that's all that they own, and that's all they can get when you split the rounded up figure that the Glazer family would get effectively.
Fair. Okay. Just quickly read. So Jamon says, I want to believe they are basically pulling every string possible to get us. Who wouldn't want owners like that? Says the Qatari. United says Real Madrid must be worth 10 billion. Well, let's not even talk about how, if the United is worth 6 billion, then Real Madrid must worth at least double. So yeah, that's interesting then. Manuel says Sheikh JASSIM, because I got my Manchester United, they are really trying to get going. Hopefully. We haven't won a title in because of these leeches. Enough is enough. Morganator, shout out to Morganator, says Qatar won United and will get United 100% money talks. Manu FC again says the fact Sheikh JASSIM has decided to stay in the bid and offer 6 billion determination. Nothing but despicable from the Glazers. I don't think he's offered 6 billion yet, but we'll see. Let's have a look. Sheikh JASSIM has revealed and promised much more than Ratcliffe. Ratcliffe has kept everything under wraps, which is concerning. The fact he can't afford 100% immediately shows he can't afford us. Ilias says Jim is a Chelsea FC fan. Isn't United? Get that vampire face out of Qatar for life. Yeah, I think a lot of people still remember him going for Chelsea. So the whole kind of I'm a local lad type of thing. It's like, well, you've been going. You're a season ticket of Chelsea. You go to. I mean, I'm not going to hold that against him, because business is business. But I just think that if you're just using that as your angle to get people on side, it looks bad. You've got to do more than that.
It didn't even stand up with Chelsea though, because how can you say that you want to buy Chelsea Football Club and that you'd want to be at all the games, and if you be like what Todd Bowley is, be at all the games, you know, see what you've been buying and, you know, flourishing what you've bought, but you don't live in the UK, you live in Monaco. It doesn't make, you understand where I'm getting at. It doesn't make sense. It's like when he's made these interviews where he said that he was at the 99 final in Barcelona. You went to the 99 final in Barcelona, you would have been a lot younger, you wouldn't have had all this money, nobody would have known you, and you seriously tell me you went to the Camp Nou and you didn't take one photo? Really? Don't try and blag your way in terms of doing things. Sheikh JASSIM, in terms of what he's done with the 9-2 Foundation, when you add the numbers up of his age, and then you say, well, he's named it the 9-2 Foundation as a sentiment to the year that in 1992 that he became a Manchester United fan and he fell in love with the club. Well, when you add the years up, then it's suddenly the years add up to what he's saying. So the sentiment, if you like, and how can I say it? It's like an alibi. It checks out really what he's saying. Whereas to Jim, it's almost as if, well, take my word for it. Take my word for it. I have a Chelsea season ticket hold. You know, I'm a Chelsea season ticket holder. I go to Chelsea games, but I'm a Man United fan at heart. I love Man United. Take my word for it. Prove it. That's what people want. Proof, don't they, really?
Adam Moramaniak says, let's be real, if Sir Jim buys Man United, the club will be relegated to the next 3 years. You could be better off to remain with Glazers. Sir Jim is using local lady tag. He has nothing. I think that's an extreme reaction, but I can kind of understand the logic. I can kind of understand the logic behind it, especially if you look at what's happening at Chelsea right now. So now a lot of people might think, oh yeah, it's extreme. But if you just think of it, if you look at what's happening with Chelsea right now, with how Todd Bowley has obviously spent money, but he's mismanaged the club.
Yeah,
he's mismanaged the club. So the reality is that if Sir Jim comes in, because if what happens is, because remember the Sir Jim deal is him bidding 50%, which means he's there, but he also keeps the Glazers there as well on a minority basis, but whatever. We don't know, and this is the problem, is that we don't know how Sir Jim is going to run Manchester United. That's the key to the stack. We don't know how he'll run Manchester United. And the reality is, I mean, you know, our niece doing well in Ligue 1, maybe kind of, you know, I like to think that as a British with knowing the football, with intelligence, he has the wherewithal to know that, you know, that unlike Toby, he's maybe American, and okay, his first love is NFL baseball. I'd like to think Sir Jim would have the know-how to think this is how you run a football club, because he already has one. But there is always a risk, especially with how competitive Liverpool are getting. With, you know, maybe Qatar might go for Spurs. Arsenal, obviously, you know, Cronkies might spend money. City and Newcastle, with what said, you know, it is possible, and especially when you've got mid-table teams like Brighton, Villa, etc., coming up. You know, and again, guys, remember going into the summer, right? You know, if this drags on, we're not going to have a summer transfer window, so it is very possible that our summer gets screwed over, we regress, we don't sign key players, we waste money. So Jim is still trying to figure his way out. We've got tons of debt, like which comes to bite us later down the line. The club doesn't go up in value as it would like because United's on keeping, and before you know it, slowly but surely, I tell you guys, Manchester, Everton may get relegated. Everton may get relegated, and they were spending, obviously not as much as us, but they were spending a lot of money, and no one thought Everton would get in this space. It was just over 2 or 3 successive seasons that they found themselves here. I don't care how big a club is. If a club is mismanaged and spends recklessly, it will be overtaken by even mid to bottom table teams, because all you need is a competent manager, players with passion, and an owner that has a vision, and that will always, always, always destroy any team, irrespective of their name. So I want Manchester United fans to realize this, that like, if the club is, I'm not saying Qatar necessarily will manage, but it's just that with Qatar, at least we know our plan. We know where money's going for. We know what they want to do. They've set us a strategy. They've set us what we want to want. I don't know what Sir Jim's plan is to Manchester United. Clearly, the Qatar are not going to be running Manchester United at a profit with the amount of money they're throwing into it. That's what I think anyway. But with Sir Jim, at the end of the day, he's still a businessman. Sir Jim is still a businessman. He is. So as a businessman, he will want to make money from Manchester United. I can't think, if he doesn't have a state backing him, he wants to make profits. So someone needs to tell me in the chat, and maybe Tom or someone can tell me, how is the value of Manchester United going to go up in the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years, to ensure profits, substantial profit for Sir Jim? How is that going to happen? What is the process? Or is that going to involve more borrowing, more debt for the stadium, for all these things to sort of get a return later down the line? Essentially, what I'm trying to say here, guys, is that the difference is going to be a question of, with Sir Jim, we're talking about a long-term project, possibly 5, maybe another 10 years to get anywhere. With Sheikh Jassim, we could be like Newcastle in Next season, 2 or 3 seasons, we're back in business. You know, it is what it is. That's my my rant there. Remember, Ratcliffe might buy them out as well. So Qatar's cash right now. He doesn't deserve the sir. Yeah, I always did, sir. But I mean, it's his name. It's his name, man. It's his name. It's his name. Stop calling that rat sir. It's his name. It's his name. It's his name. Shout out to AD man in the chat. Noble Sports is watching live from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you very much from Noble Sports. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe, guys. Mercy says, here's how I look at it. If Glaze want the money now, Sheikh JASSIM. If Glaze want to take users for more money, yeah, that's essentially. I think that's essentially it. That's essentially it. That's essentially it. Couldn't care less. He got on better with the Glazers, Sir Jim. Yeah, as soon as Sir Jim got on better with Glazers, I think he lost a lot of fan support. Personally, our shares will not increase. Sir Jim will cause more debt, and our shares will decrease massively. As I said, get Sheikh JASSIM. We will go private stock as well. Sorry, we're gonna go to final question because we're almost one half. So we're gonna go to final question from Tom. If you have any final questions, get them in chat ASAP now. But yeah, it is one half. So I'll get one final question to Tom and we'll round off. Definitely. Our problem is the debt. It keeps on increasing each year since Glazer took over the club. Why on earth does he want to partner with a Devil's Glazer? We all know Chelsea is fun, so the debt remains. Oh dear. Iris says the value will bounce up because we will get millions more new fans, as City did when they started winning everything we won on the ban. I'm assuming from if you're talking about Qatar, I'm not sure about Sir Jim though. Great show, lads. Good night, and people. Yep, take care, United Red. Thank you in the chat. Okay, so final was just round up, and thanks again, Tom, for coming on to share this news. Tom is so final is I don't want to put this on you. So, but do you think that Sheikh JASSIM's bid will be successful?
Honestly, I would say it's very significant that it probably will do right now.
Okay.
I would be, if I'm just making a prediction, this isn't any information, this isn't any knowledge. I would be surprised if, because the way I give the context and the way I predict this is because I believe if he didn't believe that he couldn't get a deal done, I think he would have walked away weeks ago. And I believe if the Glazer family have, like I say, they've already decided upon Sir Jim, I believe something would have been wrapped up already.
Yeah.
Because they've known what Sir Jim was proposing for weeks. So, really, they've known all along that Sir Jim didn't have the cash. But they've not, if that's what they wanted, why not choose that weeks ago? I just feel like it would have been wrapped up. But I feel like they've been dragging this out until they can get the Qataris and get Sheikh JASSIM to show his full hand. He's finally done it now. And they can either take the offer and say, yeah, that's what we've been waiting for, or they can use it as, well, at least we know what we missed out on or what we didn't take in hindsight, rather than we will never know, or we never know what he really had to offer. But they can always leave that question mark there. But for me, if I had to make a prediction, I would be very shocked if Sheikh JASSIM didn't come this far in the process to lose to, as it's been quoted anyway from what the Qataris have thought of Sir Jim Ratcliffe throughout the process, as being a broke billionaire in this process. So to lose against Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I think it would be shame on him. It would probably be shame on the Qatari state, because a lot of Manchester United fans will have a lot of outrage over it. How can you be outbidded by Sir Jim Ratcliffe at 50% and so on? Whether it's sustained or not, I've given my opinion as to why I don't think it should be sustained, because I think he's pulled enough trees out. And look, if you were in his position and you had to overpay to get Manchester United and you don't think it's worth $6 billion, you shouldn't have to pay $6 billion just to please a couple of billion, Manchester United fans. But for me, at this stage now, I think because he's done all that he can and he's shown his full hand, if the Glazer family don't reconsider, I would be shocked, because now they've got more money on the table. They didn't before. Friday, it was signed, sealed, done. They decided. gave over the weekend, heard Rain's recommendation for a full sale. The day after, which was yesterday now, as we're speaking, on Tuesday, Sheikh Jassim had put in an improved offer. So they've had always voices in their ear and stuff, and I think they're going to look at it, they're going to look on the table and think, listen, we can have the money here and now, and we know what we're going to get here and now. Whereas in the future with Sir Jim, and we're riding on his arse, hoping that he's going to make Man United a success, which, as somebody put the comments in, like, Man United could be relegated in 3 years. Like, and then suddenly that 20% that they might have got for £2 billion, like, mate, you'd be lucky if you get, a couple of 100 million if Man United were to be relegated for them sort of shares. So suddenly, your gamble's not paid off. So ultimately, I think a sustained period now of the next couple of days to properly deep dive the offer in. I just believe that if Sheikh Jassim has done that sort of numbers that gives if he's done the numbers that give every single member of the Glazer family $1 billion, not pounds, dollars each, I think they will accept it. And I think if they don't, I would be very surprised to hear the reasons from sources or from anybody out of the US that we've been in contact with, me and my colleagues, and speaking to. I'd be very surprised, and I'd want to hear why, because they want to sustain and stay on for longer, or some, BSPR that they'll come out with saying that they have a heart for Manchester United that they've never shown for 18 years. So for me, I just think it's too much money to turn down. And look, if it was me or Eugene in this situation and scenario, in hindsight, whenever you're a millionaire, you always want more. And these guys have the chance to get billions. They were millionaires when they bought Manchester United 18 years ago. Millionaires. They've bought it, sustained it, got to the stage where they're at, and they can walk away with billions. And that's why I believe the Qatari offer now, where it gives them the full billions, not Sir Jim Ratcliffe gives them partially the billions. I just think that Sheikh Jassim, if his offer wasn't to go through, I would be really, really shocked. Because if he's come this far and he has the money behind him to do the deal, I don't see how he can lose to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, whether he needs to cut a deal with the Glazer family or not. Money talks, and especially to the Glazer family, you had a couple of £100 million on, Joel and Avron's minds will change really quickly. But because I don't know the numbers, I can't give a definite answer as to the Qataris will win. Because if I knew the actual numbers, I can say if the Qataris will be selected or not. But rest assured, if the numbers match up and every single one of them members of the Glazer family get $1 billion each, I would be stunned if they turn it down. So I believe there's a significant chance that it will be accepted.
Quick last question, Tom, because United Thread is desperate to have this read out. It says, so if the bid is 5.5 billion, to be quick, for 100%, does this mean the Glazers will get 69% of that 5.5 billion, hence why the Qatar bid is low compared to Radcliffe?
No, because the Glazer family, when they opened this process, they stated to anybody who was interested, when you buy, you value Manchester United at 100%, and you give us whatever Manchester United is valued at 100%. And that's just how they've gone through the process. And because they're the sellers in this case, you've got to entertain what they're saying. Otherwise, you don't get anywhere near even being in the process, never mind trying to buy it. So that's, I guess, the reasoning as to behind that. But yeah, I understand the point. They only own 69%. So why would Qatar not just buy 69% now? Because the offer that they're proposing is we buy the Glazer family shares at 69%, but the offer sustains to 100%, which upon buying all members of the Glazer family out, if it will be successful after purchase, we are then pledging that we will buy the other 31%. So Manchester United would effectively be delisted off the New York Stock Exchange, and it would be a private entity and a private company, essentially. Or in Sir Jim's case, where he was to come in 50%, I would be not surprised, but I'd probably be under the knife in terms of if he didn't look at changing the exchange from the New York Stock Exchange to London Stock Exchange. I'd be do something like that just because he's obviously a British. He's a Brit. He knows how the markets work in the UK a lot better than the US. So I'd be shocked if he didn't flutter with the idea of changing exchanges. But like I say, it depends on preference. Sheikh Jassim will buy it all. So if the bid is in that region, like I say, if the bid is, as United Red says, 5.5 billion, if that were to be pounds, then that would classify over the threshold that each member of the Glazer family would get at least $1 billion each when you convert from pounds to dollars. Therefore, it satisfies the Glazer family. And if that was the offer, I would be significantly shocked if they didn't take it, because that's what they've wanted. They want $1 billion each, and they finally found somebody who can give them that. But Sir Jim can't give them that here and now. That's why I think take it while you've got it, not hold out and gamble to try and get more, because it's a pretty big gamble to take with billions of pounds. When you see your siblings have yachts or whatever parked up in Tampa Bay, you know, Marina or wherever, like, it's very hard to sustain and see. But ultimately and overall, my personal opinion is I'd be shocked if the Sheikh Jassim offer, if the numbers match up to what the Glazer family are asking and they get over $1 billion each, I'd fail to see why they wouldn't select that offer over Sir Jim Ratcliffe, even if it means they get more money in the future, or the projection states that, because you take what you can get now and you run. And it's as simple as that. You've still got another, like, people think with the Glazer family, like, they still have another sporting club in their portfolio. They have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which they can sell at any point in time. And really, the market value of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they could probably get $4 billion for if they wanted to sell it. So suddenly you've got nearly $6 billion, Manchester United. You have two sporting clubs, in theory, that if you sold both of them, you would have over $10 billion each to distribute between the six of you. Like, $10 billion. It's ridiculous. People say in the UK, like, you win £100, it's as if you've won the lottery. Like, if you win £100 nowadays in the UK. So you can see the difference in the sort of strategies, I guess. But I hope that answers the question anyway.
Hopefully that answers the question to United Red. So again, another for a detailed analysis and breakdown by Tom. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Tom says, okay, $5 billion to the Glazers and take off the exchange and sort out the federal ones later. Oh, okay, I get you then. Yeah, I'm nice and sure because I'll coming now. Thanks, RDS. And Tom cleared up a lot of real talk. Nightshade says, I read somewhere that the Glazers interested in Qatari investment. Sheikh Jassim's off top with that. Might just be rumors, possibly. And Albert says, big up, RDS. Shout out. Right. Okay, guys, we've been going for 1.5. Big up the chat, but most importantly, big up Tom, who's been the GOAT journalist when it comes to this news. Very, very respectful, very honest, very on point, and very, very succinct, when it comes to all this news. Hopefully we can get a break. We're not we could either get something definitive by the end of the week, so at least some sort of breaks. We're not constantly having to do these things. But Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show again. Make sure guys, if you haven't already, go and follow him on Twitter at TomJournalist1. Make sure you follow him at TomJournalist1 for the GOAT for GOAT's media journalistic news regarding Manchester United and then some. And guys, if you haven't already, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter and X. Smash the notification button. Make sure you check out our merch on the store tab. I haven't showed it the screen yet, but check out the merch on the store tab and make sure you hit that like button. Have a nice day, everyone, and cheers. Peace. Take care, everyone. Peace.